Hi, today we're going to walk you through sewing your own big tea cozy. The things you're going to need include the fabric pattern, which you can find in the links below. You'll need a half yard of batting of your choice. Sometimes I even use a drop cloth. You'll want sewing threads that complement the color of the pattern you've chosen, as well as scissors or a rotary cutter to cut it out. You'll want pins or clips to secure the pieces together while you're sewing, and of course a sewing machine and an iron. Let's start by cutting out the pieces that we'll need. On your pattern, you will have 2 pieces for the outside as well as 2 pieces for the inside. The big cozy has an extra project that we'll tackle at the end. Now we have 2 inside and 2 outside fabrics, and it's time to use our batting material. You'll want to fold it over so that you have 2 layers on top of each other, and then place one of your cutout pieces on top as a guideline. Pin it in so it doesn't slip around. I didn't go through the trouble of ironing the batting on this one. It's a little trick I can get away with if it's not too badly bumpy. Make sure that you have pinned through both of the pieces, and then we're going to cut these out. Again, your batting may not look exactly like this. There's several different types. Some are denser, some are fluffier. They'll all work just fine. And I've even used a heavy weave drop cloth on projects like the coasters at the end. Let's start construction. Begin with your interior pieces. You'll know that they are the inside because they have these 2 dotted lines on the top. Line them up face to face. That's so that the print sides of the fabric are facing each other. And do note that dotted line on the top, because we are not going to sew there, it's very important to keep that in mind. I usually will put a double clip or a double pin, whatever I'm using, to signify to myself that I need to pay attention and stop sewing here. That's going to be an important part for flipping this out and hiding all your seams on the inside. Then you can clip the edges around. You're not going to sew the very bottom of this. It's time to sew around the top curve, leaving that dotted line area unsewn. I do like to backstitch over the edges here just because they get a little bit of rough use when we're turning this inside out, and that helps to support your sewing. So there you go, it's open on top and it's open on the bottom. Now we're going to make a special sandwich between our batting pieces and the outside pieces of our pattern. And the order of these is very important. So the batting first, the pattern with the print facing up, then one with the print facing down, so the patterns are facing each other, and sandwich that with one more piece of batting on top. So you have batting, print facing up, print facing down, and another batting. And line those up. One more time just to make sure, because it's so frustrating if you do this wrong and have to rip out all those seams. Now we're going to sew all the way around the top. No hole on this one, so go ahead and clip them in or pin them in if you prefer, and we'll sew the top part, kind of like a hat. Off to the sewing machine, just the top, not the bottom. Here we go. Let's start putting these together now. We'll take our outside piece and the inside piece with the gap, and we will turn the outside piece so that the right side of the fabric is facing us. We'll push out the edges on that one nice and flat, and then you're going to slip this inside of your inside piece. Keep that one facing inside out. That way that the print sides are facing each other. Now I like to shimmy it in there. I like to line up the seams on the edges with each other so that they look neat when we sew them together. So I start by clipping right on that edge there, keeping them as lined up as possible. And then you can always use pins as well, but I really like these Wonder Clips lately. They hold the several different pieces of fabric together without slipping. And then on this side too, we'll clip. And then, keeping everything flat and even as can be, we're going to pin all the way around so that it stays just as flat. And you'll sew around the entire bottom this time because we'll use the hole on the other side to turn it inside out and hide that seam. And there we have it, sewn all the way around the bottom. That will make a nice clean seam all the way down here. Now we just have to shimmy our pattern carefully through the top here. Now sometimes this goes a little easier than others, sometimes you really have to finesse it a little bit. I think this required more finesse just because I was trying to record it. Once that's all flipped around, flatten out that interior lining section, and we're going to loosely just draw this little edge together that we used to flip it out. It's going to tuck in, and it's going to be hidden way up inside there, so no one's going to see that. But you can make it easy on yourself and give it a quick press with your iron. There you go, nice and pressed. I didn't even have to pin it. It doesn't have to be beautiful at this point because it's just going to be tucked away. Just make sure that it's secure and stitch over the top of that. Now we can take that edge and tuck it in. You can even secure it with a stitch or two of thread to make sure it doesn't fall down, but I haven't had much trouble with that. Flipping it around, and it looks just about done. You can press that with an iron and call it a day, or what I like to do is take that natural extra poof of the batting and roll this out just a little bit so it almost looks like I have some piping on the edge. And I'll clip that into place and stitch what we call stitch in the ditch right along there so that it looks just a little bit fancier and always stays the way that I need it to. And now you've got everything you need to enjoy a nice warm pot of tea next to the fire. If you got the big cozy, you also get the bonus coaster pack. So there's extra little squares we're going to cut out. This is where I used my drop cloth, cut out some matching squares in the same size. And we're going to sandwich them with the two print sides facing each other and the batting of your choice on top. Let me show you real quick how we're going to sew this. You're going to sew around the edges about 3 sides fully, but you want to come in on the 4th side a little bit on each edge, but not all the way. So where I'm drawing this line is where we're going to sew. We want to leave one side open to flip it around again, but if you can come in a little bit, it helps to keep everything really flat and even. You'll see in just a moment. Now, you can clip up your sides and we'll take it to the sewing machine. For this one I have the other batting. I've just recorded a couple different instances of sewing the coasters, but the process is still the same. We start on that one edge, just a little bit, go all the way around, keeping it flat. Something about this batting, it wants to curl up on me a little bit, but no matter. Do a little back stitch on the edge, and there. Everything back to normal batting. We've got our corners here. To make the flipping around easier, we're going to trim down the extra fabric on the corner. Don't cut your thread, but make sure that those corners are a little bit snugger. That way there's not a whole bunch of poofy fabric when you flip them out. So again, just right around that corner there. They'll lay nice and flat. Now it's time to turn these inside out. Just make sure that you're going in between the patterns and not in between the batting and a pattern. That way when you flip it, you have a pattern on each side. You can do the majority of this just with your fingers, pushing the fabric out the way it needs to go, but I get a pencil or a paintbrush for those corners. Do take your time so that you don't accidentally bust through your stitches. This is where clipping off the extra fabric is really handy. Then because we had sewn into that fourth side just a little bit, it will hold our seam right here, and we can just give it a little straightening out and press it with an iron, and when we top stitch around it, you won't even know which side it was that didn't get sewn. After a good press with the iron, you can really see them coming together. But we're just going to go right around the edge and a top stitch to really finish them off. If you line up where you begin your stitching with the end, you can tie the edges of the strings together and even hide that part as well. This is more of a decorative stitch, so you don't have to worry about back stitching and really securing the pieces. This is my least and most favorite part. I find it very tedious, and sometimes it's an eye strain, but it also usually means that I am done with my project and just about ready to use it. And now it's time to put the kettle on. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys found this useful and that you're inspired to make your own tea cozies and coasters. Happy sewing and have a lovely day.